All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 367 of Stu and the Nunn. Dave, do you recognize some of them young kids in those pictures?
That was really incredible. Like, that was awesome, man.
I saw you focused in on it. I'm like, he's looking for what's coming up next. It's a couple in there, a couple from your times. But everyone, I want to thank and welcome Mr. David Bellavia to the show. You didn't used to call him Mr. when we first started interviewing him in 2007 or 8. But Dave, welcome. It's good to have you back, buddy. You used to be our most long-term guest host. I think our good buddy Wolf has outdone you on that now. We haven't had to see you in a while, but good to see you and good to have you back.
Good to be back. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to tell, all the other major news outlets that you had something more important to do tonight. And
I apologize for the tardiness, but
no, good. You got a
Bills Nation.
You got a Bills helmet behind you, so you're good.
That's right.
We'll go with that. But no, good to see you, buddy. Hey, it's been a while. You've been up to a lot. I would let you cover that anything you want, but I was saying I need a good foreign policy expert on for tonight with everything going on. And well, Chuck wasn't available. So I had
Chuck's an expert. I'll tell you, he knows his stuff.
He is.
That you got a question about a tank, a gun, how to shoot it, how fast it goes. Chuck Z is my go-to, man.
Yeah, if you need specs or stats on a tank, or
everyone needs a Chuck Z in their life, and you need a mechanic, you need an attorney, and you need a Chuck Z.
Yep.
He'll tell you if a snake is poisonous. He'll tell you, he's my go-to.
And he'll bring puppies with him. So that's
right. That's right.
That's always a benefit.
Yeah.
But so I'm really glad you could join me. There's been a lot going on. We've been running guests back to back for a while and covering a lot of topics and everything. But I was glad to be able to get you and just kind of talk about the current state of the world and current state of affairs. I mean, I've seen you on Fox a few times recently, along with our good buddy Jimbo, who was just on a little while ago. Just saw him on Laura's show, and so it's good, man. So what's going on? What is your take on everything happening in the world right now? We got, Iran hitting hospitals, just shooting indiscriminately into civilian populace. We have, Israel with complete air superiority. I just really thought that Iran had better air defenses, but maybe that was part of the battlefield prep to take all those out. But it just surprised me how quick that Israel was able to maintain or take over a full air advantage.
It's to the point where if we get involved, we've got to ask Israel for permission to fly over Iranian space. Is that bad? But no, look, I mean, think about this. If you go back to when we were running around, in Afghanistan for you, Iraq, for both of us, right? You were Afghanistan. all you got what? How many?
I was Iraq. I was old school Iraq, Desert Storm. I
Okay,
was,
well, Iraq and Afghanistan. If
yeah.
you go back to the global war on terror, after watching Russia and Ukraine, I want a rebate for all the months I wasted, getting ready for the Russian, hordes that were crossing over at NTC and you name it. But the threat was always that before you got to Iran, you had to deal with Hezbollah, and Hezbollah, they cut their teeth. They had all the munitions and they would rain them down. And then you had Assad that was right next to Hezbollah. And then, Hamas is a startup at the really early part of global war on terror. And the Houthis, Obama told us they were the worst people on, Obama said that the Saudis were the worst people on earth for hitting the Houthis, right? Like, how dare you? The Houthis are our friends.
The peace loving flower handing out people of the
right. So when Israel October 7th kicks off, you've got this 5-headed monster of, if you take care of Hamas, you got to deal with Hezbollah. If you deal with Hezbollah, you got to deal with Assad. He's coming next, and then you got the Houthis, and finally you got the boss level of Iran. So Hamas folds. Hezbollah, like every time they promote someone, there's a JDAM at their promotion ceremony. They're done. You got the Houthis that fold like a card table. And then mysteriously, when Hezbollah goes away, Assad goes away. So that regime was essentially stood up. But the other threat we had was that if we ever went after Iran, we would have Russia. Russia would stick up for their friends. China would be right there. Pakistan would be right there. Well, Russia's got their hands full right now. And if this is a dress rehearsal for Xi Jinping to show us what he's going to do with Taiwan, he wants nothing to do with this fight. And Pakistan, I mean, they're dealing with India. They've got other problems in their own airspace. So, I mean, whether you're for it, against it, just calling balls and strikes, you're on that final runway, Luke Skywalker. You see the Death Star. You got that open HVAC unit. You can put 2 little torpedoes right in that thing and blow it to high hell. I'm sure Tucker Carlson won't sleep, but the fact is this is the best time to hit him. Now hit him hard.
I think I figured out what was up with the Houthis and Obama. I think he was taking advice from Biden. And he said, no, they're with the blowfish. Don't mess with the Houthis.
The Houthis and the blowfish.
I think he thought they were putting out good music, and that's why he's like, "Why would you want to hurt them?" I could be guessing, but Biden could have messed that up. I'm just
look at one of the things you mentioned about their air defense. In what was it? It would have been October of 24 was when Israel finally punched back at Iran and softened them up pretty good.
Right.
They devastated they have not recovered from that attack.
When the pager hit? You're talking
No, I'm talking about when Israel went over with their Air Force.
Oh, yeah, when they went over there.
Yeah, they haven't recovered from that. So while these guys were as susceptible today as they were last fall, and you had an administration that wouldn't even allow them to arm David Sling and Iron Dome, let alone give them bunker busters or anything else. They could have done this in November. They could have done this before the election. So, I mean, this is just, it shows you what weakness is, and it shows you what power looks like. And luckily we have a different president.
Yeah, let me ask you. So the Israelis have always been known as quick to react, right? In the history, well before this, right? Going way back. I mean, they've always been one that someone attacked them. They were an eye for an eye, right? They was like, don't screw. I remember being young in the army and be like, man, don't mess with the Israelis. Like, they will freaking clap back at you really fast. But in the last year, it seems that they are become masters at the long game. When you look at the pager attack, which was years in the making and months in logistic planning. And now we find out they had their own drone making factory inside of Iran. And Mossad was operating pretty much unmolested in Iran, building their own drone. I mean, Ukraine shipped them over in a truck by some poor DHL driver, to take out Russian bombers. These guys just didn't even worry about trying to ship them into Iran. They just made them right there. obviously had to be a long game there too. I mean, these guys have been planning this thing out for a while. And if you think about the pager attack, removing the Hezbollah, going after Hamas, remove hitting all those people with the pager attack, making them not trust electronics, not even their toasters anymore. And that they were really softening up the battlefield, removing the immediate threat, which were the ones located closest to it. And now they're doing the launch into Iran itself. The more I sit back and look at it, I'm thinking all these things are absolutely interconnected, and this is a hell of a long-term strategy.
It is, and I think that's a pretty good observation and analysis. One of my first jobs coming out of the Army was covering, the surge in Iraq in like the spring of '06 that, the sons of the Sunni, uprising of people that Al Qaeda joining our side in Anbar province. And there was like Nick Robertson from CNN and me were the only two guys in Ramadi running around. And then I got a chance to get the Southern Lebanon War, which was the summer of 2006. And it's hard to argue that Israel won that. I mean, they really got handed. They spread their supply line super thin, long. They went into the Bekaa Valley, which connects Lebanon to Syria. They were getting wiped out. The spider holes, they were jumping up right behind the tanks. They were finding soft spots everywhere. But, if you look at Israel and you look at the United States, in 2006, we went in two different directions. Israel learned their lessons, and we didn't. And so Israel started to realize that you need better intel. You have to have a plan. But when I watch Israel do all these things, it reminds me of yeah, it's cool when you borrow dad's car. You can do some cool things with dad's car. But when dad gets his car, nobody knows how to drive the car like dad, And I see the Israelis playing with our toys, and I'm like, they just don't get it. They don't get it. This is not in the stratosphere. A lot of technology's changed. We're talking about 6th generation fighters and everything else,
right?
The drones, UAS, all that stuff. But the fact is, we've got stuff. I mean, we've got some stuff. And you think the Motorola's, I mean, God forbid we get another war with people that are still using pagers. But I mean, that's going to be, we got to hit the cast of 21 Jump Street to be able to use that again. But I mean, there are things in our inventory that, our enemies know full well that you poke this bear, even Joe Biden is going to find a way to reach out and touch you. With Trump, I mean, Trump's put all of his pieces on the table and said, hey, I don't want to, Trump is using the Ike Turner strategy for diplomacy, which is, baby, don't let me hurt you again. I could do this at any time. Don't make me do it. Don't make me do it. And, you got to look at that firepower out there and realize, it takes 2.5, 3 hours for the Israelis to do their sorties, 200 planes, whatever they're doing. We are going to do the Henry Ford of, I mean, we're fighting, Americans traditionally fight with one carrier group. We tried something new about 2 years ago when we started bringing 2 carriers together. And that has not happened since we toyed with it in World War II, but never mastered it. The Navy has mastered the 2 carrier fight. And when that happens, I'll tell you what, man, we're going to get to the bottom of this whole Jesus Muhammad thing real quick. Because, I mean, they're flying sorties left and right, refueling, getting ready. It's mayhem. There's nobody that can do that. The USA doesn't.
I think Nimitz is coming in to be the second one in the Gulf. It's on its right, and I think the Ally or whatever it is, that's the one that's off of. That's the one that's off in the ocean, off of Israel. There's 3. There's one on the west side and 2 in the Gulf. Right there is, and you got every media outlet camped out outside of Reitman Air Base waiting for a B-2 to take off. I am confident that we probably have a couple positions somewhere else, and we'll let the media set up their cameras and wait for a B-2 to take off to try to alert Iran when they're probably coming in from a different direction. But then again, we've got B-52s also. If a B-2 can carry it, a B-52 can carry it. And if you
I mean, yeah, B-52, and then Saudi's getting in this fight. I mean, if the U.S. is launching, Saudi's going to be right there, and that's that's going to be trouble.
Yeah. So Rob says, yeah, the Nimitz and the Carl Vinson are in the Gulf, and the Burke, I think, is the one that's off of Israel, in the was that the Med or whatever that is. But yeah, it's they're bringing it. You mentioned Russia a second ago. You think it was just good timing? I mean, I heard Trump said yesterday that he had a talk with Putin, and Putin offered to broker a peace deal, and Trump, in his classic way, said, "Yeah, how about you worry about your own peace deal and focus on your own war, and don't worry about this one." I mean, he claims that Putin said he would try to offer and mediate, but that's to the extent of the Russian involvement, from what I know. I haven't heard anything else out of them except saying you guys really shouldn't do that. They have been neutralized in this, and probably because they have their own problem to deal with, which is
well, first of all, the biggest issue for Putin right now is where is he going to get his Radio Shack drones, because that's all coming from Iran.
right.
Those, when you start hitting manufacturing, I mean, listen, no offense to Kim Jong-un, no one wants your soldiers. If you're breaking glass and taking North Koreans, you're in a world of hurt.
Yeah,
you're in a world of hurt.
because your Wagner group got taken out. You got no Wagner group left, so your Mercs.
Wagner boys got introduced to some Rangers and some B-1 bombers too a couple of years back, and that didn't last too long. So I mean, look, he's in a tough spot, but more importantly is that Iran is completely isolated, and that's the worst spot to be in. I mean, Turkey, we have at least one NATO ally that's pulling for him. And Turkey they're going to lose everything if they even, you're not going to hear a peep from them because they've got too much to lose.
Everyone is silent. Saudi, Jordan, Turkey. I mean, there's nobody. Syria is not even really a country anymore. I mean, there's nobody, not even Pakistan, like you said. I mean, Pakistan, I think, was at the White House yesterday. Their military chief was probably had a lunch or dinner with President Trump. I mean, he brought them over. But there's no one piping up like when I was in Desert Storm, right? Everyone, it was a big coalition, and it was get all the countries and blah, blah, blah. This time, everyone's just sitting out and just whistling and looking the other direction.
I mean, Saudi Arabia is handling this conflict like Bills fans are watching Bill Belichick with his girlfriend right now. It's kind of like we're not openly making a comment, but we're super happy behind the scenes that his life is coming unglued before our very eyes. Like Saudi obviously is like, hey, we don't want to see violence anywhere. Listen, they clearly have disdain. The Gulf Arab states are going to run the Middle East, and the one and again, this is the difference between the leftist liberal ideology of we can balance the scales by making Iran more powerful and just letting natural course take its way. I mean, the side that's against nation building and against the invasion of Iraq had no problem with Gaddafi being removed, had no problem with the vacuum that created. And by the way, the biggest, if you want one, domino effect of Gaddafi leaving, it's the land rush of people from Africa and that region of the world that poured into the Europe. I mean, that's what the Gaddafi regime represented. After that, you got Sicily is now Ellis Island for half of Central Africa because Gaddafi isn't there anymore. So I mean, there's so many second and third degree, consequences of actions, and I understand there's a lot of people on the Trump side that are against it. I'm just saying, look, man, pump the brakes. The guy backed his car out and put it on the side. What are we? Nothing's happened, man. There's no 200,000 troops in Kuwait. When you see when the 18th Airborne Corps shows up and names a fob after Virginia or North Carolina, that's when you're like, uh-oh, a bunch of hot dogs are going to be steamed for breakfast and lunch. That's when you're in trouble.
Yeah, when you see green beans coffee being set up, that they're worried about watching the pizza orders at the Pentagon to know something's happening. You need to see if there's any mass orders for green beans coffee.
I do all my investments now are how many copies of the New Testament are being printed in pocket size, and I know exactly that there's a deployment coming. That's what I go all in on defense contractors.
And Desert Tan also.
Desert did, right.
Well, the
Right.
sad thing is we just had this Army birthday and we had this awesome parade. I don't know if you were there or not, but a lot of folks were. I noticed for the first time in over 20 years, every vehicle was green. And I'm wondering how many of those poor guys are back in the shop right now repainting them desert tan at the current moment, because everything was a beautiful dark cark desert, pre-desert storm, 1980s 90s green for the first time in a long time. And now I'm wondering how many are getting emergency contracted spray painted tan.
I wonder how many NCOs are at the 4th Infantry Division learning how to march. That's what I want to know.
Well,
You think they're working on that? Because that was ugly, man. It looked like they had just left. Remember that scene in Band of Brothers where like they're leaving Bastogne, and as they're passing, the new guys are coming in. That's what the 4th Infantry Division looked like at peacetime in Washington D.C. Exhausted, like they're too old for this.
they've been
I
fighting.
can't.
Yeah,
It's like they're like, you have no idea what Fort Carson is like this time of year. Elevation, I can't adapt. I'm having a lot of problems.
because there was a lot of slick sleeves, so there was not a lot of worn out people there. There was not a lot of knee issues
Right.
or back issues. They hadn't even strapped on an IBA. They did it like in basic or something.
When the Boston Robotics dog robot is out marching you are in trouble.
In time. Like if a first sergeant would have yelled out double time, that thing probably has a voice command to just take off. Like,
right. Exactly.
it would have been, yeah. The old first sergeant of me was I was twitching a little bit watching that. I was like, we've been out of GWAT for a little bit. I get it if this was 06, 07 and you're doing back to back to back deployments. Maybe you've dropped a couple things that are more, peacetime. But we've been out for a minute. We let's get back.
Well, listen, I'll tell you, if it was our generation at DC, 4 negligent discharges at least. Someone would have hit the monument. We were shooting rounds into chow halls, and I mean our Bradley fighting vehicles were juicing off 25 Mike constantly. Like, hey, a German schoolhouse called. I'm like, oops, 11 Charlies. When you AD a 60 millimeter, you're having a bad day. I was impressed.
When you see a Mark 19, which I've seen, and it just keeps going, and you're just like, oops.
Right. Yeah. No, so I was impressed that there was no brass and ammo checks, and no one was rotting the 120 millimeter tube. It was it was a mistake free. No vehicles broke down.
If it was our generation, if they were Porta-Johns, they would have been completely graffitied up. I mean, there would have been a lot of artwork. That's what the left media would have been talking about. They would have done a whole 60 Minutes would have done a whole special on the artwork of the Porta-Johns on the parade ground. But I did think of yeah, you're right. There was some feedback on the people waving, and they were saying, the soldiers were waving. They weren't stoic, looking forward, all that stuff. And I kind of thought of some guys I know from our generation, probably from your platoon, that if they would have been driving, that Bradley would have been waving its main gun up and down. It would have been swinging, doing circles. It would have been, I bet you would have had a couple guys from your platoon that would have made that Bradley dance, not just cruise.
There is something cool about, watching a Bradley do their little maneuvers. They traverse and whip the turret around. My guys were famous. The insurgents figured out that we have to be in like the 11 o'clock position, traversed up to reload ammo. And our guys would fake doing that. And so that you would get movement, and then they'd be like, psych, and like, sling back and just put them in sandbags. That was pretty fun. But honestly, the thing, we spend a few $1 billion every year on recruiting. And that's way better than a NASCAR. That's way better than anything you could put out there. That was a hell of a job of, getting the message out that, it's cool to be a soldier again, and I love the fact that I had Marines talking about, 250 years, and they're like, we're up there too. The Marines are trying to get their, Air Force and Navy. You're like, what about us? No, you couldn't have America without the Army. Remember that.
That's right. You're prior. Well, what's the old joke say, right? No one grew up as a kid wanting to go play Navy. everyone played Army. No one's, I'm going to play Air Force,
Right. We
but
play Space Force.
yeah, but no, it was pretty awesome to see that, and but it did get me on all the green vehicles. I'm like, man, we're just totally pretending like we're not going back to the desert ever again. I'm like,
Yeah, we got 70,000 troops in the area, and I'm looking at just what is the point right now. I mean, if Iran, look, there's breaking news that they hit the Ayatollah's bunker. I don't know what that means. Do they get him? Do they not get him? Obviously, Mossad and Tier 1 Israelis are on the ground. I mean, the Operation Spiderweb in Ukraine is almost identical to what the Israelis did. You're bringing ballistic missiles in a traffic circle in Tehran. Maybe look out for the Ryder truck running around with the guys smoking a Marlboro Light. That's probably where it's going to happen. These trucks just like unload drones. I mean, we saw an image of Mossad, which we've never seen before, but I was just blown away by how absolutely, you can always tell, unfortunately we've seen so many, mass shootings in America that we now judge when it goes to breaking news. You look at the cops and you can just tell from the first responders, is this active? Is it over?
right.
And there's always, just like we had guys that, low ready, high ready, not so ready. You can just tell like the position of their rifle, like nothing's going on.
Like
you get a sense of that. These Mossad guys behind enemy lines, taking out launchers. I mean, they had absolutely zero fear that anything would happen. Guy's nods are up. He's got his MRE cooking. I mean, it was like he didn't give a damn. There was nothing you could do. Nothing you could do.
It was a kosher MRE, but it was still an MRE.
I'm just saying that when you're doing the evening news and a 2,500-pound JD lands on your head, it's kind of hard to argue that you're winning this thing,
Yeah. No, that was when it first happened, and I was like, oh, they attacked, and some images started coming out. The first thing I thought, and probably you're the same way, any of us with military background, was like, somebody's lasing that. Like, these are way too accurate. Someone's got a glid and they have got that target painted, because these things were I mean, we're like, look, they put it through a window. They did this. And then of course it came out that, oh yeah, they're on the ground. They're painting targets. They're building drones inside the country. In fact, they even said that Mossad was planting explosives ahead of time. Some of those were not aerial delivered. They were ground delivered. And that's why
it's ridiculous. Did you see that tank spike they loaded up? For if Iran, they had exquisite time. I'm telling you what, I don't have any authority or information. I'm just extrapolating. Those boys were in that country for over 60 days. There is no possible way. When you have time to spot weld a drone, when you have time to,
and bring in a game controller and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, they were way too comfortable, man, and it makes you think. I was watching. There's a website called Memory, MEMRI. Have you ever seen that? It's a great. If you ever go on X, you should follow them and subscribe. They're great people, first of all, but they take English translations of everything in the Middle East, and I get so much awesome information. You're watching like a newscast, but it's translated so you can follow along. And they've got when you're watching the Iranian military parades, the officers wear like a hat that you would see in like Key West on a 67-year-old woman, like a giant, like the bill on the hat is like if they threw the hat on the ground, you would do a crater analysis on it. It looks like a splash of a mortar round. It's the most ridiculous hat you've ever seen. And everyone is constantly covering their face. So think about the insecurity of a military. If Mark Milley is hanging out with the Joint Chiefs and you're doing a propaganda video, like you're filming this is for the Iranian military, and all of our generals are hiding their face, turning their back to the camera, what does that tell you? I mean, they're afraid to even show what they look like in fear that, and now it's like, hey, congratulations, sir, you got promoted to boom. Like they're taking these boys out at such a, crazy clip.
Before the wife can even get her yellow roses at the change of command.
Right, right, right. It's like that Houthi formation where they all stood around in a circle talking about what's the plan for today. The
Oh
plan
yeah,
for today is
and they had footage of it on the ground where someone was videoing. I mean, to
right.
and you mentioned that, right? So we talk about Mossad, what they've done. There's a report, and I'm sure there's going to be so much more. I mean, I don't know how much will be made public, but I mean, I think that eventually it'll get out, or at least they'll share with our military. But just like the pager attack, there's going to be a lot coming out after this what they did. But one report out is when they took out the 4 intelligence officials the other day, I think Sunday or Monday. Um, they had set up fake cell phone towers and radio relays, and the Mossad put out the message for them all to get together and meet in this little bunker underground. They brought them all. It was like you see like an intervention, like, hey, come over to my house, and everyone's waiting to ambush someone about their drug use. The Mossad's the one that sent the message out, and I don't know if they did it on pager, but they told them all to come to the secret spot they all know of. They all came there, and they were waiting and just put one down the pipe. I mean, even that itself, if that's the only thing they did, would have been a phenomenal operation. But that's just one of many. And I make sense because I mean, like, how'd they get all 4 of those guys, like the top 4 and their deputies, intelligence people, in one spot in the middle of like not having any air cover?
This morning they took out 30 of them. They took
Yeah.
out 30 senior military leaders in one shot. So I mean, if I'm look, there's some jobs in the United States Army where you have a bat phone and you got 18 hours to be sober and get ready. If I'm in the Iranian tier 1, I'm turning that phone off.
Nobody's going to Greenland. Nobody's going
to. I don't believe a single thing I'm hearing. That's yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Ahmed, this is Hamid. We got a formation out front. Hell, we do.
Muster formation.
Formation. Yeah. I'll be late. I'll be late. I'll be there. Yeah. Tell Commander I've got a phone call. I'm not going to.
It's just ridiculous. But again, I love that we're ready. We don't ever take our enemies. Never underestimate what the enemy can do. All true. But Russia. I mean, what we'll look at the invasion of Baghdad as the most incredible logistic feat our American military has ever accomplished. The fact that we could have like a 4.5-mile convoy, encircle it, fuel it, take our injured out and just keep moving. That machine just kept moving towards the capital. It was absolutely incredible. And you just think of like little things, infantry, tankers, all awesome. But man, you need logistics. You can't run out of gas in Kyiv. Like someone there's, you that cannot happen. Farmers cannot haul off your tank with a John Deere. That is always frowned upon. But Iran,
operational BMP or tank. Yeah.
How's your green to green? Well, I lost my tank.
How's that red one report? Yeah, it's not.
Put your hands on your sensitive items.
Yeah, give me a thumbs up there, squad leader. Yeah, no, but I mean, it's like you say, it today you had the president come out, and through his press secretary, she quoted him, right, that he said, he's going to make a decision in the next 2 weeks. We all know President Trump's been very he's been big on ending wars and not committing people to wars. And right now you got the GOP very split, right? You got some that want him to do something and some that don't, but he came out, they said, we'll see how it goes sometime in the next 2 weeks. We all know he is the master of the art of the deal. He knows how to play the media and everything else. He's shown that through the first term and since. I mean, I saw that today. I was watching it live when it happened, and I go, man, this guy knows exactly what he's doing. He is keeping them on their edge. It could happen now. It could happen in 2 weeks, but I'm going to make a decision. What do you think that's doing? Is he generating his own psyop warfare against the Iranians?
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, we're the right wing in America politically has never had influencers ever. The 24 election was the first time that we had people that were agnostic to politics, they got involved. This was like Obama in 2008. You had a bunch of people that were singing, dancing, playing basketball, and they're like, this is our guy. Well, that happened in 2024, but it happened for Trump. And a handful of these guys have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And now they're like, we're going to war. I regret voting for Donald Trump. You're not going to anything. You're not going to anything. I mean, listen, we've all been in a training environment with a 5-ton is 7 miles away. You think it's your 5-ton. It's not your 5-ton. Everyone starts collecting their stuff, getting ready. This is our ride home. No, it's not. Shut up. Not until it parks is it your 5-ton. So all these machines are lined up. It's extra leverage. The Ayatollah wants to come to Washington, probably to save his life, to be honest with you. But he like they're going to negotiate. They have to negotiate. And if they don't, the biggest problem here is that, a lot of times we looked at bin Laden this way. We look at the Ayatollah. There's going to be another Pope. There's going to be another Ayatollah. There's going to be another Putin. These guys don't exist in a vacuum. So you kill Burger King, they're going to make Whoppers tomorrow. That's the way it works. You got to be prepared for what's coming down the pipe. And the people that are losing their mind over Trump and he's vacillating, he's doing this, he's doing that. The guy brought in $88 billion on the tariffs that 90% of the political class said was going to cause hyperinflation. It didn't cause hyperinflation. We're finding out today that for every illegal immigrant we're deporting, 5 to 10 are self-deporting, and everyone's complaining about the number. Like, again, you don't have the facts. Give a little confidence to this team that he's built. They're pretty good at what they do.
Yeah, I heard yesterday they're reporting 1 million have self-deported that have gotten
yes, in 4 months.
Yeah, and what their $1,000 check, and they've self-deported and they're out. And
Menudo canceled their tour. They're done. They're not. Yeah. They're not going to do. They any more events.
Hey, right? May had zero illegal immigrants come inside this country, right? That they know about.
That number, that's the released. The zero were released. They got about 18,000 that came in, but they were promptly swaddled and catapulted.
Yeah. Let me ask you what's going on in LA. That went silent from about Friday on. I was talking to my wife the other day. She's like, are the riots still happening? I'm like, I don't know. Like, they're not talking about them. I don't know if that's still going on out there or not. But boy, that fell off the news cycle really quick when Israel started launching attacks. And in fact, and you haven't heard anything about Ukraine. You haven't heard about anything. It's almost like the news media is on. They're a drink from a fire hose, and they don't know what latest crisis to cover. And they go after whatever bleeds leads.
That's true. Look, I think what happened was people started to realize that, there's been almost a dozen times that the president of the United States has federalized National Guard without the permission of the governor. You go back to 57 in Little Rock and
right.
JFK in 62, JFK in 63, Lyndon Johnson in 65, Washington in the Whiskey Rebellion. But the other thing is when you read the U.S. code, I do radio 5 days a week, and it's amazing to me at, the difference between, if you're looking at U.S. code 10-251 and 252, clearly you can see that 251 is when you have the governor's permission, and 252 is when you don't have the governor's permission. So why would the U.S. code exist with a caveat to say if the governor doesn't want to give you his National Guard, the president and the commander-in-chief of the military could say, I'm taking him. Eisenhower did it. Kennedy did it multiple times. Lyndon Johnson did it. George H.W. Bush did it in the L.A. riots. George H.W. Bush in the L.A. riots used the Insurrection Act. So it's like, again, we're being lectured to by, lunatics.
Right.
This isn't going to last. We're going to get Ketanji Brown Jackson, and I will never get Sotomayor. But in the Supreme Court, there's a chance that this will be an 8-1 because it's that nonsensical.
Yeah, if you think it'll get to that level, you think it's going to the Supreme Court?
It has to because
of
you're going to. you're going to get the universal injunctions coming up before the 4th of July, which I think is going to be the most consequential Supreme Court decision in our lifetime. It's going to beat Dobbs. It's going to beat the guns. It's going to beat everything. A universal injunction, Article 2, to take Article 2 of the Constitution and reinstate it and say the federal judges are not elected and they're not there to circumvent the presidential power under the Constitution, executive power. That's a huge decision. And then the second one is going to be, what are we doing? We're codifying existing U.S. code. It exists for a reason. Like, what games are we playing here? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I've heard of other protests or things popping up here and there, and obviously, the president hasn't backed down. If anything, he's been like press harder, right? He's just pushed the gas pedal down even more, and they're hitting raids everywhere. Home Depots, meat packing plants in Florida. I mean, all kind of stuff. They're just not. He's not one to be scared by anybody.
It's amazing to me. It's like, the confusion of like the type of illegal that is being sucked up. Imagine you're at a DWI checkpoint. You drive up and you're like, officer, good news is I'm not intoxicated. Bad news is I don't have a license or a registration. They're not going to be like, only looking for drunks today. Keep on going. You unlicensed driver, you get out there and you get legals fast. Hey man, you go in and you find a bunch of illegals, you're taking them out. You're going to deport them. And by the way, I can't get 50% of the country to, be in favor of the new formula for Coca-Cola. To get everything's 50-50 is every issue. This is an 80-20 issue.
Yeah.
There's nobody that you talk to, like first generation Americans, and that you have to like listen to their English, that speak, have every Selena record ever made, and they speak, broken English. They love this country. They're going to look you right in the eyes and be like, illegals, get the hell out. It doesn't matter where you're from. Afghanis are telling the illegals to get the hell out.
Did you see? You see the Schwarzenegger interview on The View yesterday?
Yeah.
I mean, that's that. I mean, he couldn't have been more eloquent. I mean, he pretty much was like, he came here as an immigrant, right? And they tried to bait him and try to get him to say things. And he, as I said to some folks, right? Not only did he, did Joyce set up the ambush site, she walked herself right in it, and he wouldn't let them stop him. And he just kept them in there, and they kept trying to interject and put their hands on him. And I mean, he said it like we all know. I was a guest. When you're a guest somewhere, you try to treat it better and be nice, and you don't rob, you don't steal, you don't do whatever. He gained, I think, a lot of fans yesterday because he was
and a guy that hasn't traditionally shown discretion. I mean, he is the same man that impregnated his 50-year-old maid. You know what I mean? So when Schwarzenegger is showing discretion, it's a special day. What the View's lost their mind. I mean, there's always if things aren't going in the news, you can always just go to The View and just play audio and just it occupies an hour of your program of just talking about how ridiculously untethered to planet Earth half of these people are. But I mean, again, it's like what percentage of the masses are on the side of illegal immigrants? I've seen interviews with illegal immigrants that are saying, I really should be out of here. Like I'm gonna vote. If I could vote, I'd vote for Trump, and I don't want to be here. I should leave.
Let's be the reality. I mean, they. By the way, I would always listen to WBEN before I watch The View, but just to give you a plug. But they can't. A lot of them came here because they were sold some grand sky and pie in the sky vision of going to America, and you're getting all this, and then they get here and realize, even if they get over here and went through the old administration, got a court appearance for 3 years from now, there's no, if they didn't make the hotel, they're on the street in New York City, and if they didn't, get there was no one laying out a red carpet for them. Right. And they're, they got into an apartment complex in Colorado, and now Trenda Agra is like banging on their door and wanting to, paying money and all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of them realized all these great promises and this, this nirvana they were offered does not exist, even though America's a great place. Because the way they came in, there's nobody helping them out short of a Catholic charity here or there.
Well, I mean, the New York Times had an interesting article about the DNC ran out of money at the same proportion that USAID is being defunded. So I found that to be rather an odd circumstance. I had Tom Homan on my program yesterday, and we were talking about, he brought up this point that really not a lot of people talked about, which was there was a reason why they didn't want to keep these illegals at the border. I mean, what do we do? The Army is created the tent city. That's all. I mean, we can put a tent city on the moon right now. We are subject matter experts in creating tents and putting a million cots in a tent. The fact is, they didn't want that to happen. They wanted the hotels. They wanted to spend more, and they wanted to stretch the timeline for these court appearances so that we could bless them. These blue states are hemorrhaging population.
Yeah.
And, that's money.
And a lot of them need that population to substantiate their bottom line. They need to, if they want to take the House, sometimes the only way to do it is fudge the numbers to get more reps. And if you're counting and you don't have voter ID and you're counting every single person in a census, that's how you boost your numbers up. I mean, that was one thing I thought was interesting. We didn't see, at least I didn't, you probably know better than I do. I didn't see a lot of pushing of these folks to historically red areas. There were some to Florida and like that, but most.
Oh, no. They hit those purple states and those red states. Absolutely. That was a part of the plan. Yeah. They hit a lot of red districts. Yeah. Well, I guess 2 a.m. flights on an unmarked plane. What's to see here? Right. I mean, lots of people show up at 2 a.m. on a Spirit airline filled with, people with oranges, bananas, and socks and jumpsuits. I mean, the whole thing was an abomination. Look, we have a president now. And, I was blown away that we just got a report from Chuck Grassley. I mean, just a host of ridiculous things. But one of them was that 80% of the auto pen signatures were done when Biden was in Washington, D.C. I was hoping that it was going to be like, well, he's on vacation, he's home,
he's at the beach.
Yeah, no, he's right there. He just cannot be bothered. It's not signing season for him. It's tragic, is what it is. It's a constitutional crisis. It was. The other side likes to project, but in this case with Iran and the world, we're not supposed to have our director of national intelligence making decisions. I love the Secretary of Defense. We're friends with the Secretary. Right. That's insane to say out loud. We've known the Secretary of Defense for decades. I don't want him making that decision. That's the President of the United States' decision. Yeah. So you consult, you give assistance, you give opinions. But in the last 4 years, Tony Blinken was telling Mark Milley to sit down. What is Tony Blinken telling 4-star generals? You guys leave before the State Department does. And they're like, hey, if we leave before the State Department, are we going to come back here and bail you out? No, we got this. Don't you worry about a thing. State Department's got this on lockdown. Not even 4 days later, they're like, please, someone, anyone. We have no idea.
Come back to Kabul. We need you now. This did not turn out as good as we thought. Yeah.
Right.
No, right. But you're right. I mean, and it needs to reside with that. I mean, you know the president pretty well from the past. You've spent a lot of time in talking to him, and you could probably say this with confidence that he, like right now, the big report is, he's got this small little clique of like 4 people, and he's cutting everyone else out. Everything I've heard and seen is that he takes advice from a lot of people. He is not. People think he's just like, it's my way or the highway. But he pulls a lot in. Now, whether obviously there's competing opinions and all that stuff, but he seems to be very much open to hearing as many opinions and perspectives as possible before he formulates a decision that he knows he has to make.
No, I can tell you with firsthand authority that Secretary Hegseth is involved in every single aspect of Pentagon planning and the budget process, consulting the president 4 times a day. Tulsi Gabbard has not been cut out. She has not been sidelined. That's absolutely ridiculous. She was just in a meeting. I mean, look, that's all nonsense. But at the same time, President Trump, definitely gets advice. You saw him with the construction workers talking about Jerome Powell, and when they're going to kick out the Fed chair. That was a little uncomfortable, but President Trump.
That was right after he asked, making sure none of them were illegals. When he
Yeah,
turned around, like,
yeah. President Trump gets a lot of advice, but at the end of the day, President Trump makes his own decisions. And when you are honored enough to be in his presence to give advice, you never know what way he's gone. He'll look at you, he'll listen to you, and he'll be like, "Okay, get out," and then he either takes it or he doesn't. But he is his own man. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's going to make his own decision, and he owns all of those decisions, even when they're bad decisions. He's the first one to be like, Mnuchin was a turd. I should have fired him on day one. John Kelly, what was I thinking? These guys, you got to, if you're not going to swim, he's not going to stick with you because you're bringing everyone down. The mischaracterization, and here's the other mischaracterization of President Trump. He really does care about life. He really does. This is not like a gimmick. He doesn't want to see Russians die. He doesn't want to see Iranians die.
And he talks about it.
He literally wants to save human life. And the idea that is somehow, maybe it's new for an American president. I mean, is he Lyndon Johnson? Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, Dr. King came into the Oval Office, and then he called him the N-word. We've come a long way from, him belching into a microphone, talking to the Hagar Company about his bunghole being too tight, wanting jeans. Lyndon Johnson was an animal. He was an animal. He was an absolute disgusting human being. Donald Trump, for all of the perception out there that he's a narcissist, a megalomaniac, he is as honest as he can be when he's talking to the American people. A wise person said something about Trump. Don't take Trump literally. Take Trump seriously. I think that's the best explanation of Donald Trump that there is. Don't take him literally. Take him seriously. And he's been underestimated his entire life. But he knows exactly what he's doing. He's already made his decision. He's given Iran every opportunity to spare human life.
Yeah, it's that's good way to put it. I like that quote because one thing why people relate to him, which I've always said this with him, is like how did he relate to somebody, the American everyday flyover state person, when he's born into money and a millionaire, billionaire, and all that stuff. But it's because he didn't need a PR team, and I don't know if one would want to be his PR team, and he didn't need a teleprompter. He just talks off the cuff, right? Like American, like we all do, right? We just say things, and it's probably improper sometimes and off color or whatever.
Well, you were in the White House when you saw the teleprompter. There was nothing that he'd go back to it after 6 paragraphs of his own.
Yeah,
that's his style.
That moment I've been able to pick up now when I watch him. I can tell when he jumps off. Like you can see it. And then he just like, and he just hits that same topic over and over. But no, he just talks the way he talks. And sometimes like, oh, maybe we should look at this. And then the whole world goes, oh my God, Trump said we got to do this. We got to put UV lights in our veins and all that kind of stuff. When he's just like, he's spitballing. He's like, I don't know. What do you guys think? Should we try something? Especially when you're talking about a possible pandemic. I mean, but I think, he really, in my opinion, has gotten much more mature in his second term. He understands the weight of his words, and the impact that they have. I think a lot more in this term than he did his first, from what I can tell. He hasn't gotten more refined.
This is his first term. I mean, there was a loaded gun, literally 2 times last year, but there was a the first administration, it was impossible to get anything going. He's new to Washington. He doesn't know who to trust. The last 6 years have really taught him who to trust. The people. Look, I mean, he's got Stephen Miller is Vets for Freedom is the organization back in 2006. Yeah. And if you look at the class, you're a part of that, and all the mill bloggers and CV and was a founder of that. And you think of like that class. So we were up against like the Vote Vet guys. The Vote Vet guys moved on to the Obama administration. But if you look at our class of like Vets for Freedom members, we got guys in Congress, we've got a Secretary of Defense, we got
Yeah, I was about to say.
yeah, Hanson's over there like with his own show, and he's on Fox all the time. He's now one of the nation's leading experts in analysis and commentary. The Jimbo,
Right.
like that's a pretty impressive group of guys that all kind of got together and didn't know how to get their sideburns even.
One day I saw you, Jimbo, and Tim Kennedy almost back to back on Fox, and I'm like, do I know everyone that's on Fox now? I'm like, who's next? Like, is Toby coming up next? I mean,
Toby would be great. I'd love to get his take on what's going on with Carney. But yeah, no, but I'm just saying that group has, I think, really distinguished itself, and that's a neat little fraternity to be a part of. But Stephen Miller applied for a job at Vets for Freedom.
Really?
And we were like, you don't have military experience. Get out of here. And he's like the smartest man in the world. And it's like, oh, man, that would have been so cool to be like Miller and Hegseth, because
we made an exception on that one. Maybe it was like, okay.
Oh, no, I'll tell you, he was brilliant back then, 2007. He was super smart.
That's why maybe you should have waived that military background. Like, let's just take him out to the right for a while.
Right. But I mean, he's brilliant, and his policy is great. But there's a guy working with the Trump administration named Vince Haley, who's this guy is under the radar, does policy, writes a lot of speeches. This guy is brilliant. I mean, the one thing I could tell you from this chief of staff, everyone that's in that, the Eisenhower annex to the actual, West Wing, that I will put that crew up against any. They'd womp the Reagan administration. They've got subject matter experts in every single nook and cranny of that White House. This is not the first term at all. There are some really talented people in that White House right now. Really smart guys and girls.
Yeah. It is a very diverse group, and of all genders, races, sexualities, doesn't matter, right? There's just but the left or whatever, the Trump haters try to paint him. They try to create that drama, whether it's he only consults with some people and leaves some out, or he's anti-LGBTQ. This you realize 2 of his people are openly gay. I mean, it's just like they're always trying to create some kind of division, right? Create some kind
and
of.
I think at least 3 of them are closeted gay, to be honest with you. No, but I mean, there's gay people. Come on, there's everyone. It's insane. But again, if that's what we're talking about, but you have that debate. We're just going to move policy down the field.
Remember the first term, everyone was like, he's picking all these generals. Remember, he had General Kelly and this and that. And everyone's like, all he does is pick generals. Well, he just kind of went with what he thought were the best, in my opinion. He never talked to me about it, but it's like he probably went and go, these guys are reputable commanders on the battlefield, 3- and 4-star generals, and he picked a couple different ones. Then McMaster, who I'm a big fan of, and he just, some worked out, some didn't. But he thought, well, if I have to pick someone, they're probably better than a politician. Like you said, he really didn't know anybody. He kind of. But at the same time, he doesn't just kick the can down the road for someone else to deal with, right? He's mastered that "you're fired" term, and he did it. And then he would get critiqued over that, like, "Wow, so many people he's firing or quitting." It's like because they're not making it, right? You appoint someone in your administration to support your policies, right? It's
imagine
that. Like, yeah, it's like the cabinet hearings, right? People are like, "Oh, you only got picked because you're just going to go along with the president." Yeah. Because he picked me to be the secretary of this cabinet. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to support his policy.
But the attacks on Hegseth, I mean, they got in the weeds and they really hit him hard. But it's incredible. That job, I think it's tougher than being president, without a doubt. I think it's the toughest job in the world to be Secretary of Defense because the president can always tell me what you think. Secretary of Defense is the guy. And he's not just the Secretary of Defense as a space holder. He's rebuilding the entire military right now. It's $1 trillion budget, and he's in the minutia of unions and shipyards and counter IED, counter drone and all this other stuff. I mean, it is insanity, that guy's workload. And if his brain isn't blown up by now,
Yeah.
he's there.
And he's a family man, a father, all that stuff. I don't know how his poor family wouldn't ever see him because he just seems like he works or is on the go all the time. Him and Sean both, because he has Sean right there with another one that comes back from our past, right? And, Sean has been when he got,
Parnell.
yeah, when he got appointed, I sent him a text, congratulated, thanked me. I was like, man, that's awesome. Sean and
Yeah,
I
he's a
fought.
good dude.
We fought in the same battles in the same battle space at the same time. Our battles intermixed, and great and a great spokesman and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of good people up there, and there's some that didn't make it. There's some that have bounced out for whatever reason, right? People can speculate, but same thing. I don't think the Secretary of Defense is afraid of firing people if they're not making it either. So
No, look, Parnell's a great man, and we've known him forever too. Really good guy. And if there were turns, I'd tell you. There's. I didn't know. Some of those other guys. A couple of them I did, and I still think they're really good guys. And who knows what happened? But you know what? Sometimes you get cut. What are you going to do? Keep going.
Right. So we're sitting here, bunker buster. They're saying we're the only country that has this and does this. Everyone's putting a lot of credence on that. But there's also some talk of, well, Israel saying they can do it. Israel saying, and it could be whatever being on. They're saying they wouldn't need us. Maybe they can aim it down that little air chute and get something down there. I don't know.
Listen, if that GBU 57 is an incredible piece of machinery, equipment, but you're not even 100% if you hit that thing 4 times. I mean, the GBU 57 is what we got out of Tora Bora, right? Tora Bora was really we need a penetrator. We need something massive. We need something that's going to be able to go through stone. We knew Tora Bora because we built it against the Soviets. So, I mean, we knew it pretty well. And so that took like 22 years to roll out, and nothing's guaranteed that if you hit that thing 4 times that you're actually going to penetrate the way you want to penetrate it. So, I mean, nothing's guaranteed, but the Israelis can say that they can hit it and they can blow it up. Obviously, they have people on the ground. I think they have Mossad with apartments right now. In fact, when they show me a general that hasn't died yet, I'm thinking spy. That has to be. There's no way. There's no way you survive. It's like you're in a firefight and the enemy's not shooting at you. Where the enemy's like, I see Troy and Bellavia over there, but they're okay right where they're at. Let's focus on the real threats. If you're in like a 2-hour firefight and no one has popped or snapped near your head, it means that the enemy clearly knows where you are and seems to not be threatened by your presence on the battle space. It's weird that all these scientists are killed and there's like 4 or 5 that are hanging out and they're like, yeah, the Israelis know everything about you. And they're like, we think you're good just where you're at. Yeah, one thing to not get promoted, another thing for the enemy to be like, we'll keep you there. We think you're all right.
Well, it reminded me of like when I was in Afghanistan, right? Our battalion 3 for the Kandak, for the Afghan, we knew he was selling us out and everything stuff. So it became common practice for us to invite him on all of our big battalion missions. And we'd be like, oh, you get to ride in our Humvee. And he'd be all out, he didn't have to ride in his little Ford Ranger. He'd be like, you can ride with us. That was our way to guarantee we weren't going to get hit by an IED. So we would brief him. The dude was dirty as they could be. We're like, you ride with us, my friend. He'd be like, oh, thank you. Like, yeah, here's a bottle of water, all that stuff. Guess what? We never got hit. Like we were like,
it's amazing.
And we would tell him, we'll be the 3rd Humvee in the convoy. That's which one you're getting. See you tomorrow. Like all the intel.
You want to make any phone calls, go right ahead. You're free to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we're not scamming anything. Don't worry. That was what we used to do all the time. We put him with us, and it was like insurance. It was better than the Dukes, better than the Jammers. We had that dude with us. We were clear free. There was no getting hit with that guy.
It's a different world now. It's a different world.
But you're right. Those scientists, maybe the Iran leadership may start looking at them like, why are they surviving? Right? It's like when the cops do a raid and they take the informant and kind of take him away from everyone else and throw some cuffs on him loosely. Like, we're going to take him over here and then release him. It's like they hit all the generals, but Ahmed and Hamid, like, where aren't those dudes been taken out yet? They're walking around.
In the old days, they would do that just to, take you out of circulation. They had, just to let the other side think you're a mole. And
yeah.
and let natural nature take its course. That was the way it was done. But
But you,
no, it bothers me to see Israel play with our gadgets and do it in the way that this is not the. I mean, we've been blowing people's. There's a whole lot of guys missing important parts of their face in 20 years of the global war on terror. You know, we've been. I mean, look, we've got some stuff, and it annoys me that I'm like, man, we've been saving this. Like, why waste it on Hezbollah? You know what I mean? Like
well,
that.
and to the honor of today, I wore my Moab shirt. Oh, I don't have it. Dang it. I had my Moab shirt on earlier in honor of the Moab we dropped in Afghanistan. I thought I still had it on, but, that was the mother of all bombs. And we finally got to drop one there because the thing just been sitting there getting dust. And I'm sure this one, the bunker busters, the same thing. That maybe it's coming up on its best by date, and they got to get rid of it. I don't know.
Well, I think they dropped one on ISIS, right? Didn't they drop the 57?
I don't know. I haven't cared.
Yeah, they did the Moab in Afghanistan just because Trump wanted to, and then I think they did the 57 too, and it found oil.
You're not you're not worried about precision when you just roll it out of the back of a C-130. It's like it's close enough.
right.
Danger everywhere you can.
There'll never be a joint direct munition on a warhead. That's a 5 kiloton. They just kind of be like 6 digits, all I need. We're good to go.
Forward work too, but
forward will do. Just give me the first number. That's all. That's all. We'll find a way to make it happen.
Yeah. But good. Well, hey, we've been on for about an hour, Dave. We covered a lot of stuff. I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything we haven't covered you want to let our listeners and viewers know about, or just be aware of, or think about? I know you talk every day, and so that's why I really appreciate you coming on, because you talk nonstop. Unfortunately,
I do. I've never stopped since I learned how. I got nothing. I appreciate you, and that's it. I appreciate it.
All right, man. No problem. Well, hey, stay on for a second after, but thank you so much. Rob will close us out. Thank you for tuning in. Everyone, make sure you check out our sponsors and keep an eye. Follow us on all of our socials. And we'll see you all next week.